I believe God wants to restore to us the joy.
All right, well, we are here, Think Media TV, with Brandon Willett, father, husband, follower of Jesus, DJ, worship leader, artist, and graphic designer. And so how are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Where are you at right at this specific time?
This specific time, I am outside of a local coffee store in Charlotte, North Carolina, listening to some horrible music.
The coffee store music.
They have music here, and it's pretty unbearable.
Oh, no. Brutal. Well, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, though. We're talking about electronic music, DJing in the church and in the culture, and then just life in general. So, ready?
Sure.
All right. So, how did you initially gain a passion for electronica?
I used to hate electronic music, actually, back in the day. I don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to the idea that, when it comes to hip-hop, when it comes to rock and roll, when it comes to anything, I'm kind of a firm believer that you got to kind of turn off the radio if you want to actually hear the good stuff. And that's what I did. It was really funny. My buddy of mine had the Rape Till Dawn CD. This is way back in '94. And I was like, man, that actually sounds really cool. I was actually also getting into a lot of industrial music at the time. I wasn't really following the Lord at this moment, so I was getting into like Front 242 and Skinny Puppy and all these like massively electronic but industrial bands. And then obviously just the other electronic music just kind of followed suit. Ended up buying a Prodigy CD, their music for the Jilted Generation, and I think that was actually my first electronic CD I bought, and then kind of the rest was history. That's how I got into it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
It's so you DJ in the church world as well as the secular world. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What is the contrast and crossover? Maybe the contrast and the crossover of those two worlds that you guys.
Man, the contrast and the crossover. I would say actually the first thing to start with, kind of almost the crossover, and we didn't talk about this before, but just even attempting to get into the scene in Charlotte has been a pretty big effort. And one thing that I've learned is that you don't have to be in church to be religious, and I really noticed that even in the club scene in Charlotte. You have a few DJs. They kind of monopolize on most of the better sets, and they don't usually let people in. They don't let new blood in, the kind of the new wineskins type of idea, and then they criticize the city for why they're not coming out and doing the thing, And I'm like, wow, that's so familiar to me in other ways, and it's funny. It's the world not trying new things, not stepping out and getting new blood. I hope you can hear me. 20 trucks decided to drive by at one time.
Hey, no worries.
Anyway, but apart from that, I don't really, for me at least, there's not that much. You have that kind of, and that's just human mentality. That's always the fear of the new, and for the church, they love to have things, and I'm saying this with all the love that I have in my heart. But at the same time, there's issues, Right. And we're all family, and we're part of this family, so I guess I can kind of say safely that in a lot of ways, and I understand where a lot of the pastors and leadership are coming from, but they want things to be safe. But I'm not talking about even in a reckless sense or a debaucherous sense. I'm just talking about, when things don't look the way one is used to, the safety valves get shut and the boards go over the windows, and people lock themselves down for all treachery. And it's it's that kind of thing. It's like, if you want growth, you can't have a sterile environment. Things are going to get a little messy, because that's the thing. If you want growth, in real life, what do you got to have first? Dirt, to grow something in. So things just inevitably get dirty. And there's this kind of, we want the kids to grow as far as we can, as long as they're kind of huddled in this kind of one microcosm that we already know. And so that's always been a stretch and a challenge. I actually used to throw raves in the Morningstar Youth Building back in the day. Me and a few other guys would, and those eventually got shut down for those reasons. They dug the pioneering thing, but then they just got a little uncomfortable. Not that there was anything going on that was even wrong.
Right.
It was just the sound and the approach to the sound and the attempt to juxtapose that to worship, and it got a bit a bit uncomfortable for the older crowd. So I think that's the one thing. And then the club culture, man, oh man, I mean, what do you say? It's political, and it's dark, and it can be very dirty. And I wouldn't even, and I know this is kind of gonna bleed into another question, but I wouldn't necessarily even suggest anybody to go into it if they don't already have experience in it. And so yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. And so for you, being in both worlds, how do you express your faith in each?
That's funny, because back in the day, I really wanted to just kind of, as we all do, and we get kind of really, we go to a few youth conferences, and we get like super duper on fire, and we just have these ideas that I'm going to go out and I'm going to we're going to overthrow the whole club with the Spirit of God and all this stuff. And not to say that can't happen, but the Lord likes to work in steps, and and He likes process. I mean, obviously, there's always we're always open to the concept of the miraculous, that all of a sudden everyone was acting this way and now they're this. But I've learned over the years that I've really just got to be me. And what I mean by that is me in all my sincerity and in my honesty and in my integrity and just in plain old kindness. And through that, and just to the skill, because you got to have the skill, you got to bring it,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of favor, and then you have favor with the other DJs, and then the resident DJs, and then the club owners, and then the promoters, and those are the gatekeepers. Right. And when you have favor with the gatekeepers, man, there's a lot you can do. Right. And so that's what I've seen, is just real slow, chiseling type of idea. So yeah.
Cool. So now, this actually, to the people listening, they might find it kind of crazy. I know I did, to some extent, that the church, different churches and movements and things you've been involved with have actually embraced electronic music.
Right.
In your experience, how has it been embraced, and how broad have you been able to express electronic music in the church?
There's to a fault. There's always limits. There's always stops at things, and by all means, because it is really new. It's still there's still a massive unknown factor, and two, where this is coming from. That's it's difficult for those that don't know much about the electronic music scene to not see it in the light of where they have seen it. Their reference in the world with drugs, sex, and all these other things that really do come along with that scene. It's it does get a little daunting, and put some stops to it in ways, obviously. But those that have really been into it, they're noticing that, hey, kids are listening to this. It's, at least in America, it's in commercials. Hey, we have a few Mitsubishi commercials, that it's in and whatnot. and it's slowly getting adopted. I actually see the influence of electronic music more in R&B and hip-hop right now than I have any place else. Like, so many of the things I hear in hip-hop, I'm like, oh my gosh, I heard that 2 years ago in this Cat's track, and all that stuff. So it's cool to see the influence, but to get back to your question, in conferences and mainly that those types of ideas, like in expos or in festivals and in conferences, I get an hour, or me and Joel get an hour, 2 hours, and we just go for it, and we do what we know with the Spirit of the Lord, and we try to direct the kids into that. The other way too is just kind of, creating atmosphere, which is fun too. Hey, this is, while the kids are coming into the meeting, or in between sessions and all, because atmosphere is phenomenal. It does a lot for the creative heart, and we've done that too, where we actually do a set, and it's just kind of more so not necessarily directed worship, but just a time of intercession, a time to find the Lord on your own, to draw, to write, to do those things. More of like a corporate individual type of idea. We're all together, but we're all gonna find the Lord kind of in our thing.
Right.
And so those are the few places that I've really seen it work. And two, just even like in worship music, I've remixed some people's worship music. I've remixed Suzy Yaraei's stuff, and Joel did that project, which is phenomenal. We completely remixed Suzy Yaraei's full worship album, and that was really fun. And in Elevation, we've done some remixes there too, so that's also an amazing thing. Because in all honesty, a lot of these kids, these youth kids who are maybe even just coming out of the world and coming into worship, what are they going to have in their iTunes first? Are they going to have Hillsong, or are they going to have Owl City?
Yeah.
And so thinking that way, I think we have a massive soft market right now, even even if we're going to talk about monetary or population of a movement. But yeah,
sure. Nice. Okay, so if someone's listening right now and they want to do what you do, they want to get into electronic music, mixing, etc., what are some first steps that you would recommend for them to take?
Well, the way I learned it old school, because this was, what are we going on, almost 15 years now. And, I started buying records, and I eventually got turntables, and I had a buddy at the college that I went to who was a DJ in town, and I'd go to his dorm room because he had him set up in his dorm room, and we would just spin all night. And then when I got an apartment, we didn't have a washer and dryer. My laundry room was my little studio, and I just went for hours. And so learning how to mix is like ultimate. That's like the first step. That's like the ollie in skateboarding. It's the fundamental of everything. Sure. And learning how to beat match, and you can do that a few ways now, because God bless technology.